All right, so up to this point, we've only looked at HTML, which is definitely needed. We need it to actually put stuff on the page, but by itself, it's very ugly. We need CSS to style it and move things around and align and add colors and background and anything else that has to do with layout and style. So in this section, we're going to look at all the basics of CSS. So let's go ahead and create a new folder. And just like we did with HTML, we're going to create a sandbox. So I'm going to call this CSS sandbox. And these files will be in the lecture, the last lecture, the introduction, if you want to download those, or you can just create them along with me. So I'm going to open this with VS Code. So in Visual Studio Code, I'm just going to go ahead and open folder and open up CSS sandbox. And we're going to create in here a new file. And I'm going to call this we'll call it basic.01 underscore basic.html. So I'm just numbering them so you know what order we're going in. And again, you don't have to number them. And if you didn't watch the last section, the HTML section, we are using an extension called Live Server so that we can open our HTML file in a little server and it will auto reload. So you just want to install that if you don't have that yet. All right. I also went over some tips and tricks with shortcuts as well as Emmet, which allows us to write faster HTML. So we can actually do exclamation and hit enter or tab, and it'll give us this basic HTML structure. Okay, so in the title here, I'm going to call this Implementing CSS because I want to talk about the different ways we can actually bring in CSS. And we're going to look a little bit at selectors, but we're going to talk more about that in the next video. So let's put some basic HTML in here. I'm going to put an H1 and just say heading 1. And then I'm going to copy this down by doing Shift Option or Shift Alt on a Windows machine and then hit the down arrow twice. So this will be heading 2 and heading 3. And let's actually make this an H2. Make this an H3. Okay, and I'm going to save this, and then we're going to open with Live Server. Okay, and right now I have this, I have them both, the browser and the editor on the same screen, but later on we're going to have to make this bigger if we're going to build, real websites and stuff. So we have 3 headings on the screen, and I'm going to show you 3 different ways to implement CSS. The first is called inline CSS, which is not something that you want to do, but it is something you should know. And this is what we were doing in the last section, the HTML section, when I just wanted to show you a couple examples of stuff. So we use the style tag, and you can actually put CSS in here. Like, let's say we want to use the color property and we want to set that to red. If I go ahead and save that, the heading turns red. Now you don't want to do this, and the reason for that is you want to keep, it's called separation of concerns. You want to keep your styling out of your markup. Okay, you want to keep those two things separate, and when you do it like this, you're just clumping it all together. It's much harder to read, it's much harder to change. It's just not good practice, and any developer will give you crap for doing this. So this is not something you want to do, but it's something that you should know you can do. All right, so next one I want to show you is called internal CSS, where it's still on the same page. It's on this HTML page, but it's separate from your HTML. The way that you do this is inside your head tag, you put in a style tag. Okay, and then in here you can just put CSS. Now, when you're using CSS, you need a way to select whatever it is you want to style. Let's say we want to change the color of this H2. Well, we can use the actual element as the selector. So I can say H2 and then open some curly braces, and I can put as many styles in here as I want. So let's say we want color, and let's add green. And if I save that, notice that it turns green. All right, now let's go over this syntax really quick. So if we take a look here, I mean, this is similar to what we just did, except we used color instead of background color. But the first thing here is a selector. in this case it's an A tag, what we just did was we did the H1, then we did the H2, and you can use the actual tag as a selector, but you can also use IDs, classes. There's something called pseudo selectors. There's a lot of different things we can do for selectors, and we're going to get into that in the next video as well as later on. So that's a selector. Then we have the declaration start. We also have the declaration end. So everything goes within these curly braces. And inside the curly braces, we have a property, such as background color or color, as you just saw, and then the value, okay? And in between that, we have the property value separator, which is a colon. All right, so you have the property and value, and you can add more of these. If we wanted to add a color, we could do that as well. You just want to end each one with a semicolon. So this is basically just a diagram of how CSS works. So we've looked at two ways to add CSS: inline, which you don't want to do, and then internal. And I'm just going to put a comment here, and you can have comments in CSS as well. If I hold down Control and hit the question mark or /, you'll see that it adds in a / asterisk and ends with an asterisk /. This is a CSS comment. So in here, I'm just going to say that this is internal CSS. All right. So I'm going to save that, and I'm going to show you the third way, which is external CSS, where you actually have a separate file that you bring in that has all your CSS. So let's create a folder. I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to click the folder icon and call this folder CSS. And in here, let's create a file called style.css. That's a common name for a main style sheet. And you can include more than one style sheet if you want as well. So now that we have a separate file, let's grab this H3 right here. So I'm going to use the H3 element as a selector, and I'm going to do color blue. Okay, we want to end that with a semicolon. Now if I save this, you'll notice that the H3 is not blue, and the reason for that is this file has no clue that it's supposed to look at that style.css. We actually have to bring that in, and the way that we do that is with a link tag. Okay, HTML has a link tag that we can use in the header, so we'll say link, and then I'll hit enter or tab, and it gives us some necessary attributes such as rel. This tells it basically what type of link is this. It's for a style sheet. And then an href, just like with the A tags, this points to the location that we want to basically load, which in our case is in the folder called CSS, and it's a file called style.css. So if I save this now, you'll see that the H3 changes blue. That's because we're now including this file. Okay, if we don't have this, if I comment this file out and save, it's not going to read it. So you want to make sure that you include your style sheets. Now, out of these three, this is the preferred, okay, using an external CSS file. When we build our projects, when we create a website, all our CSS will be in a separate file. However, for this sandbox, for this section, I'm going to be doing it this way because I don't want, for a couple reasons. One reason, I don't want to have to go back and forth to go to my CSS. I also want you guys to get a big picture of what's going on, so I want you to see the HTML and the CSS at the same time. But usually you would do it this way. You would have a separate file. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So in the next video, we're going to start to look at how to use IDs and classes for selectors, how to use multiple selectors, nested selectors, things like that. So I will see you in the next video.